by Chasing the Rainbows with your host, Bernice Quisenberry.
This week's episode is A New Year Without You. And this segment is all about going into a new year, especially that first year after we lost our baby, either by miscarriage, stillbirth, or infant loss. And it's all around the feelings or emotions that us survivors may or may not feel at one point or another. Our feelings are valid and they need to be talked about and cried about out loud. So before I dive into a few things and I want to specifically, like I mentioned, discuss that first New Year's without Brooke with us. But before I dive in, I wanted to just thank all of our listeners and subscribers out there. Because of you, we are reaching more miscarriage, stillbirth, and infant loss survivors. We are finally getting some recognition where we were ranked number 2 on the top 35 best pregnancy loss podcasts on FeedSpot. So that was pretty cool. Just that we are reaching more followers, more survivors, and with our free podcast and then also our free daily support services, because that is really what we're trying to do, is unite baby loss survivors from feeling isolated and alone, because we do run 2 free virtual Zoom meetings every weekday. And also we have a mentorship along with other services just to help survivors, especially right at that beginning, that first year or two, that we all, feel like we could use a whole little tribe behind us. So with that said, I just want to thank all of you and appreciate everything that you guys are doing too and tuning into our podcast. So the new year, we had an episode on the holidays, talked about that a little bit. I think it was episode 22 or 23. And we're on episode 26. I can't believe that we've passed 25, a big one last week. And we're continuing to go, and we keep finding other topics and other things to talk about. And it's from recommendations that people are making on criedoutloudpodcast.com. Survivors that are writing in, asking questions or wanting topics. So please feel free to do so. We are also accepting guests right now for our podcast, and the guest form can be found on the website as well. It's about midway down the homepage. It's just a few questions that we need answered. And then we go from there with the interviews. So the first new year, when we were leaving 2021, the year that we lost Brooke, and going into 2022, it hit me hard. I thought the hardest part was going to be Christmas, Thanksgiving, all of those, because I loved those holidays so much, and that's just what we celebrate. But that to me was harder, just with the merriness, the fakeness, the gratefulness that everybody was feeling. And like we discussed in our holiday podcast episode. But with the new year, it was harder on me because I felt like I was getting further away from Brooke. And also, it was just in addition to just getting pummeled by Thanksgiving, Christmas, and then the new year. So it was just a lot all at once. And especially coming up only a few days after Christmas is the new year. So it was like I just couldn't get a break. And that emotional grief hangover just kept following me, I felt like. And I couldn't come up for air. And I did not want to embrace that first year, any kind of resolution or a fresh start going into a new year, because that really meant that I was going into another year ahead that was without my baby. And I never realized the impact that New Year's would have on me until that first year. And I realized it's okay to not be okay at that point, and that it's okay to admit, I didn't want to leave 2021 because that was the year that we gave birth to Brooke. That was the year that she was alive. And that was the year that we also lost her. And it just meant, and I mentioned this in podcasts before, we're making more memories without her. Time is moving on. Things are moving on. And she is not here physically with us. And it looked a lot different. And life looked a lot different than what we thought or what we even imagined, after losing Brooke. So it was heartbreaking going into a new calendar year and further away, like I said, from the time that I was with Brooke, that I physically got to hold her, see her, smell her, hear her. And, especially when I'm just in survival mode and trying to be an active person in society that doesn't want to draw even more attention to myself, it was like everything was still moving and I was still standing still. And in those moments during the holidays, during New Year's, when I'm seeing all these people celebrate being merry, excited to go into a new year, embracing that like fresh start, new life kind of feel, I wasn't there. And I could not get myself to that point or get there, especially that first year. And it's okay if the start of the new year feels heavier when it's supposed to feel lighter, and just realizing and recognizing, okay, this is not what we anticipated for 2022. I should have a 6-month-old at this point celebrating the new year with us, her still being in her first year of life, all of those things, and recognizing that that is not our life today. And instead of celebrating her life, we now are mourning, losing her. And I'm grieving. Of course I am. I'm a mother without my baby. So grieving her, and like I said, moving away further from her, it was just that constant reminder. And I had to be okay and give myself grace with basically leaving and abandoning that whole mindset of the new me. And where I was at with my grief, and giving myself that grace and realizing that I feel crippled right now from my grief, which is okay. And I was in that moment, especially leading up to New Year's, right after, like I said, Christmas, and then also days after the New Year's. And that's okay. And I just had to realize that and surround myself with other survivors who understood exactly where I was coming from. Also, people in society think that, in time, all wounds are healed. Right. And, at that 6-month mark too, around there was New Year's and holidays, and people were not recognizing, that we were grieving, or like couldn't understand or didn't really fathom what was really going on with us, because everybody at that point almost forgot, or, just things come up. They're living their own world, they're doing their own thing. And, that passing of time, it just brings up so many more emotions and things around each significant date, each significant holiday, all of that, because it's like a silhouette, right? And I know I talked about this in another podcast as well. It's making those memories and having, feeling like I'm seeing my whole entire family. I'm seeing my nieces, nephews, cousins, kids, everybody that is celebrating holidays. And I have this silhouette of what I imagine Brooke would look like at this point, how old she would be, how she would be as a person, her little personality she would have, and just imagining what it would be like to have her interact with our other children. And like I said, nieces and nephews and things like that. And it is just, especially that first year, it was so difficult because she wasn't here. So, the further I got from those last moments of Brooke, it seemed to get harder before it got to a point that I could almost see the duality of grief and joy that could coexist together in the holidays, and which I'll talk about a little bit more. But it was like another year is just that beginning of first that we'll never have. Especially seeing loved ones and family friends who had babies that were right around the same age or age that Brooke would have been, and seeing how their children, what they were doing, their milestones, and at like 6-7 months, crawling and then trying to stand up and just like being mobile, like smiling, giggling, all of those things, that I'm not going to have with her. And it's just that other constant reminder, that comes up, and that I'll never get those memories. And I only have the past to hold on to. I only have that brief moment of time that we had with Brooke to hold on to. because when I think of it, or when I look at it, it was so short, right? And in retrospect of our whole entire life, and it was the most impactful thing that ever happened to us in those moments. And losing her, and just the events around it and everything, and how much it changed our whole entire world, and how she did. And of course she did. She's our baby. Around the holidays especially, and just to bring this up too, I had to stay off social media. I could not get on there. I couldn't see posts. I couldn't see, the glamorous life that everybody was living when I wasn't feeling anywhere close to that. And, seeing people posting on the new year that this will be the year that friends, loved ones were going to be bringing home their baby, that they'll be giving birth. And it was just a reminder that I'm getting further away from my baby who we lost. And this is a year that, she didn't touch, for example, the memories that we made with her were in 2021, and we're just getting further away from that in 2022 is how it felt. And so, the two other New Year's since, 2023, and then this past one of 2024, just a couple, 2 days ago, I have been really working on and trying to understand almost and process having that duality of grief and joy coexisting together. Because our pain or sadness can actually be an opportunity for us to open to reservoirs of joy and comfort that we have coexisting with inside of us. But it's learning how to actually accept, I guess, in my opinion, accept both, and also accept that this is what we are left with too. And so this year actually was the first year. I'm not big into New Year's resolutions since we lost Brooke, or really focusing on changing anything. Because for me, it's I don't need something else to almost feel like I failed at by saying, I'm going to lose weight, or I'm going to do this, because in a couple weeks, I'm just going to bomb it. But so this year, I actually chose to be more gentle on myself. And that's huge for me, I think, because I can be so gentle on others and give so many other people grace, and just be compassionate and understanding with where they're at in their journeys. And then when it comes to myself, and I really recognized this around this holiday season, was that I too am still grieving the loss of my baby. Of course I am, right? And here I am, talking to other survivors. We're in support groups together and just supporting one another, and realizing that it is still okay to have those moments where I am not okay, and that I should be gentle on myself. I should give myself that grace and that compassion and self-love that I give to others so easily and willingly. So this is just something that I want to incorporate into, who I am as a person, kind of that positive self-talk that I do to myself, that positive love, and showing myself that same gentleness and grace, and being able to really make it a part of who I am. And that's what's important to me. And it's not going to be perfect. It's not going to, come naturally. It's going to be something that I need to work at, but I know that I need to work at that. And I think recognizing that and seeing it, and from being around other survivors and, in support groups and mentoring and all that, I think it's great because I can then look at it and recognize that in myself, and then do something about it today. And also, learning as we are moving on, and I'm in my grief journey, and living this life and growing larger than my grief with Brooke, it's okay, what else can I do to improve upon myself, my life, and on this journey that I never wanted to be on to begin with, right? Because I've always wanted Brooke by my side, but since that can't happen, okay, I've learned so much about myself, and thinking that I am a lot more now self-aware of different things because of focusing and processing and learning how to cope in a healthy manner and things like that through, this significant grief of losing our baby. It's a whole new life and a whole new way. So I just am trying to figure out what's going to work best or what I need to do. And so, courageously moving into this year and just moving forward, this is something that I really want to incorporate in myself. But we also have, different traditions now around the holidays in honor of Brooke. And one thing that I do is being of service, because I feel like in myself, being of service gets me away from almost out of my own self a little bit and helping others. And I'm not saying to like escape or anything like that. It's more to, okay, being there for one another helps me too. So I keep the phone lines open that we have for Chasing the Rainbows, our nonprofit, for survivors, and I'm available for them, which they all know, on the holidays. So if they need to talk or they need to call, they can go ahead and do so, and I will answer. And that's something that I started doing since day one with the nonprofit, because I realized how heavy holidays could be for me, that first year especially, navigating all those firsts. And so I just doing that every year really does give me almost like a self-driven purpose during those days too, because they are heavy on me still. And then also this year too, we were available for support group for survivors, which was really neat. One of our volunteers, she made herself available, which was huge. And I think that speaks volumes too, because, we all want to be of service and be there for one another and just rally around each other. Also something that, I do in the holidays is light a candle in honor of Brooke and just remembering her, and also, just saying her name out loud. And then it gives me the opportunity to talk about her and share, things that I miss about her or things that I would have wished with, my husband, partner. And it's just, it means a lot to me because I want to hold that space for her, and I want to continue to keep her legacy alive and everything that she has, does and continues to do. I also hang her stocking with our family stockings. And this year, I put a little something in there for her big brother and also her dad. And for me, that's really important because I want them to also, feel that same includedness with, her, and and almost like celebrating her instead of her stocking being there and being like a gloomy kind of way, because we have a lot of ornaments on our tree. We have a lot of different things of Brooke around the house. And so I think too, just holding on to that and honoring her for who she was and things like that. Also, I thought this was really neat. I've heard a couple survivors in our support groups talk about this, where they would get different toys and different items and donate them in honor of their child, which is huge, I think. That's something that I would love, in years to come to kind of incorporate, either donating books or donating toys, clothes, something in honor of Brooke and, her making that impact, and also driving, showing my other children that, doing these good things and helping others is what, it's all about, and being above self in service and all of that. So, like I said, being gentle myself this year is something that I'm going to choose to focus on. And we would love to hear from anybody on our social media pages. I did put it out there what my New Year's resolution was. So feel free to get on Instagram or Facebook and let us know what yours is. We would love to rally around you. We also have, like I mentioned, other support services, because we get it. The holidays can be extremely difficult that first year and years after without having our baby. So please feel free to jump on, send us a message through any of our websites, either criedoutloudpodcast.com or chasingtherainbows.org. and we would love to hear from you. And we are always with you, fertility, pregnancy, and baby loss survivors. Until next time, thank you so much for tuning in, and please follow and subscribe so we can reach more survivors.